Chapter 1: The Scourge of the Dragon. Once upon a time, in a land shrouded by the mists of legend and the whispers of the ancients, there lay a kingdom gripped by fear and sorrow. This realm, known as Silene, was a place of bountiful fields and clear streams, where the people lived in harmony with the land. But a shadow had fallen over Silene, a darkness that crept from the depths of a nearby lake, poisoning the very heart of the kingdom. The source of this terror was a dragon, a vile creature of immense power and insatiable hunger. Its scales were as black as the night sky, and its eyes glowed with a malevolent fire. Each day, the dragon would emerge from its watery lair, its wings casting a pall over the sun, its breath wilting the crops and fouling the air. The beast demanded tribute from the people of Silene, a sacrifice of their finest livestock to sate its endless appetite. But as the years passed, the dragon's demands grew ever more insatiable, and the kingdom's herds dwindled to near extinction. Desperate, the king decreed that a lottery be held, and that the dragon's hunger would henceforth be satisfied with the flesh of the kingdom's youth. Each day a name was drawn, and a heartbroken family would surrender their child to the beast. It was during these darkest of days that a stranger rode into Silene. Clad in shining armor and bearing a lance that gleamed like a sliver of the sun, the stranger introduced himself as George. He was a knight, he said, a servant of a higher power, and he had come to free the kingdom from its curse. The people of Silene, though wary of hope, could not help but be drawn to the courage that seemed to emanate from this mysterious warrior. They told him of the dragon, of the sacrifices, and of the princess, the king's own daughter, whose name had been drawn that very morning. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the kingdom, George mounted his steed and rode toward the lake. The people of Silene watched from the battlements, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that they might be witnessing the end of a brave man's life. The dragon, sensing the approach of a new kind of prey, emerged from the lake with a roar that shook the earth. Its eyes fixed upon George, and for a moment the world seemed to stand still. But George was undeterred. He spurred his horse forward, his lance poised to strike, his faith his shield against the flames and fury of the dragon. The battle that ensued was like none the kingdom had ever seen, a clash of good against evil that would be told and retold through the ages. For this was the beginning of the legend of St. George and the Dragon, a tale of valor and virtue, of a hero who faced the embodiment of evil and emerged victorious. It was a story that would inspire countless hearts, a story that began with the scourge of the dragon and the courage of a man who dared to defy it. Chapter 2: The Arrival of a Hero. As the sun's dying light bathed the land in hues of blood and gold, George, the knight from distant realms, faced the monstrous dragon with a resolve that seemed to pierce the gathering gloom. The people of Silene, who had known only despair, watched from afar, their breaths caught in their throats, their prayers a silent chorus ascending to the heavens. The princess, fair and pure of heart, stood bound at the water's edge, her fate seemingly sealed. Yet, in her eyes, there flickered a spark of hope, kindled by the sight of the noble stranger who had come to challenge the darkness that held her kingdom in its thrall. George raised his lance, the very embodiment of the divine strength he served, and called out to the dragon, his voice cutting through the silence like a clarion call. "Foul beast," he cried, "your reign of terror ends this day. By the power vested in me by the Almighty, I shall deliver this land from your curse." The dragon, with a bellow that turned the lake's waters to steam, lunged at George, its maw agape, revealing rows of dagger-like teeth. But George was swift, his steed carrying him aside in a dance of death, narrowly avoiding the creature's deadly embrace. Again and again the dragon attacked, each time met by the knight's unwavering spirit. The battle raged on, the clash of scale and armor echoing across the valley, a testament to the epic struggle unfolding before the eyes of the kingdom. As the fight wore on, the dragon's fury seemed only to grow, its attacks more desperate and wild. But George, though weary, was undiminished. He bore the scars of the battle, his armor dented, his face streaked with soot and sweat, yet his eyes burned with an unquenchable fire. In a moment of divine inspiration, George saw his chance. As the dragon reared back to unleash a torrent of flame, he charged, his lance aimed true at the beast's underbelly, where the scales gave way to vulnerable flesh. With a mighty thrust, the lance found its mark, and a cry of pain and rage tore from the dragon's throat. The beast thrashed and writhed, its dark blood spilling onto the earth, a poison turned to nectar by the purity of the night's cause. The dragon, weakened by the mortal blow, collapsed onto the ground, its breaths coming in ragged gasps. George approached the fallen creature, his weapon ready to deliver the final stroke. But as he looked into the dragon's fading eyes, he saw not just the embodiment of evil, but a creature of God's creation, flawed and fallen. With a prayer for mercy, George ended the dragon's suffering, and a great stillness settled over the land. The people of Silene, who had expected to mourn, now wept with joy, their cheers ringing out across the kingdom. The princess, released from her bonds, ran to George, her gratitude shining brighter than any crown. The king, moved by the knight's bravery, offered him riches and titles, but George asked for none of it. His reward, he said, was in the doing of God's work, in the liberation of the innocent, and in the knowledge that Silene would once again flourish. And so, the legend of St. George and the Dragon grew, a story of a hero who came not for glory or reward, but to serve a higher calling. His tale would be passed down through generations, a beacon of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness, a reminder that even the most fearsome dragons can be vanquished by the arrival of a true hero. In the aftermath of the dragon's defeat, the kingdom of Silene was alight with jubilation. The air, once thick with despair, now resonated with the peals of church bells and the songs of a people freed from the shadow of fear. The land itself seemed to sigh in relief, as if the very soil and trees had been holding their breath, waiting for the moment when good would triumph over evil. St. George, his armor tarnished but his spirit unbroken, stood amidst the rejoicing crowd, a humble smile gracing his lips. He had not sought adulation, yet it was bestowed upon him by every grateful heart in the kingdom. The king, true to his word, offered George a place of honor at his court, but the knight, ever faithful to his calling, knew that his journey did not end within the walls of Silene. For the dragon he had vanquished was but one manifestation of the darkness that lurked in the world, and George's mission was to seek out such shadows and bring them into the light. With a promise to return should Silene ever need him again, George bade farewell to the princess, to the king, and to the people who had shown him such love and kindness. As he rode beyond the gates, the setting sun cast his shadow long upon the path, a solitary figure against the canvas of twilight. Yet in his heart he carried the warmth of Silene, the prayers of its people, and the knowledge that faith, when wielded with courage and compassion, could slay more than dragons. It could heal the very soul of the world. And so, the legend of St. George and the dragon would endure, not as a mere tale of battle, but as a testament to the triumph of faith, a beacon to guide the lost and a shield for the righteous, in a world ever in need of heroes.